Hey, how's it going, guys? My name is James and I like beers. Today we're gonna be making some carne asada tacos and pounding a couple brews. So hang around, check it out, and hopefully you guys like the end product. So we're gonna use a couple different things. We're gonna start off with some citrus. So we're gonna use some oranges, some limes. We're gonna have some garlic in there, some peppers, a bunch of other fun stuff. Let's get started with the oranges. So all we're gonna do is we're gonna break these guys down, just right in half. And then we're gonna hit our handy dandy little orange juicer, and we're gonna go right into the blender. Take the soul right out these things. This is not going well. Okay, so we're gonna use a total of 2 oranges, and then we're gonna mix in some other stuff. So we're gonna get some lime in there, some serranos, some cilantro, some white onion. So the reason why we want the citrus in there is that's gonna start to like tenderize the meat. Any marinade, it's really got 3 base components. It's an acid. A lot of times people use like a vinegar. Citrus is very popular. A fat, which is usually some kind of oil. In this case, we're gonna use olive oil, and then spices or flavorings. This orange was kind of a bitch orange. It didn't have like a lot of juice in it.
LA orange.
LA orange. The nice thing about oranges actually in the marinade as well is it gives it a little bit of sweetness, which a lot of people don't normally put in carne asada, but it brings out the flavor of everything else quite a bit. Then we're just gonna fuck up some limes right quick. Alexa, juice my limes. So again, 5 limes, 2 oranges. Next we're gonna go with some garlic. Just a rough chop, nothing crazy. The blender is gonna take care of the rest. Knife. Flat side of the knife down, smack it with your hand. I don't like doing that because I almost chopped my hand off once, so I just smash them. Kind of works a lot better. I've had these hands since birth, and it peels pretty easy once you smash them. Like when you use the knife, it doesn't peel quite as easy. Like if you just smash them with your hand, it kind of destroys them. Then we're just gonna put a really rough chop on the garlic. Nothing crazy, there's just kind of a industry standard rule that everybody does. It's 3 fingers down, 1 in the front, finger curled forward, slow is smooth, smooth is fast, nothing crazy, and just a rough chop on them. A lot of people are like, oh, well, I can chop super fast, but nothing slows you down more in the kitchen than cutting off your finger. Okay, so we have orange juice, lime juice, garlic. Next, we're gonna hit it with some cilantro. Nothing crazy, we just wanna get the cilantro off of the stems. One of the best ways to do that without like making all the stems in there is to actually hold the bunch by the back, take the knife and run it down over the stems. A lot of people try and cut through the stems. When you cut through the stems this way, you end up with a ton of stem in there. And then just a super rough chop on that. And in you go. Okay, now we're gonna play with a little bit of fire. So we're gonna go with some serranos. You want spicy or not? How spicy you wanna go?
Like a 7, 6, 6.5.
Like, are we talking like Thai spicy? Or like, cause I ordered a 2 once at like a Thai joint and I cried. So we're gonna do 3 whole serranos, and then we're gonna do 2 serranos without the seeds. Remember, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Don't cut your fucking fingers off. So when you want to take the seeds out of a pepper, you just split it. And a lot of the times people use like a spoon. What I do is I take them and I just kind of crunch them. And it just pops right out. And when you're cutting these things up, before you decide to use the restroom, why don't you give your little monos a quick rinse? There was like a 10-minute period though, like after I did that, where I was like, dear God, do I need penicillin or do I need a shower? Like, I don't know what's happening, but things are unhappy down there right now. People always think like the seeds are what are spicy, and it's not actually the seeds. It's the white shit in there. That stuff right there. That'll ruin you. So if you really want to take it out of there, take your knife and run it against the pepper, and you can get most of that out. You end up with all the pepper flavor without destroying your butthole. Again, just a super rough chop on these because the blender is gonna do all the work for us. In you go. I have a feeling it's gonna be fucking spicy, bro. And then we're gonna break down an onion. So a lot of people like cry like crazy when they're doing onions. The reason why an onion will fuck you up is if you cut the root. Right? If you leave the root intact, it won't ruin your eyeballs. Just break it down quickly. Have it, but still leave the root attached. Take the tip of your knife, run it into the onion, but leave it attached. Come into it real quick in the middle, and then come down. Once you get towards the end, tip the root over, break it down, and you're left with your little onion root, and your eyes still work. Now we're gonna spice this thing up a little bit. Olive oil goes in. Now it depends on how much like other stuff you put in there, right? So we've got the soul of like 7 pieces of citrus, a bunch of cilantro, 6 things of garlic, and a half an onion. So we're gonna go with like a half a cup. We're just gonna make sure that we can get it in there. And this is gonna really allow it to like become thick with 2 C's. So that way like it coats the meat a little bit better. And then we're gonna dump in like a tablespoon of cumin. Does that feel like a tablespoon?
Hey, can you move the olive oil, please?
Can you move the olive oil, please? And then a bit of salt. Don't over salt because we're actually gonna put some salt on the meat. So just a bit, either kosher salt or sea salt. Whenever you put it into a marinade, it like breaks everything apart. It acts as like a like basically sandpaper in there. Okay, now we're gonna hit this on the blender. One thing that we do want to keep an eye on is our liquid level. If there's not enough liquid in there, we can always add more, but we don't want to like overdo the olive oil to begin. I think I forgot to put a tomato in.
Sure did.
I sure did. All right, we're gonna fuck up a tomato real quick. If you toss in a tomato, it actually, again, tomatoes are very acidic. It'll actually help with penetrating the meat and giving it a much better overall flavor. And it kind of changes the color profile of it a bit, but nothing too crazy. Just a quick breakdown of a tomato, drop her in. And so whenever I marinate anything, I always use a plastic bag, a big ass Ziploc bag. And the reason why I do that is you can flip it upside down and toss it and make sure it's evenly coated. And I'm lazy, and when I'm done, I throw it away instead of washing a bowl. So here we've got 2 pounds of flat meat. So flat meat is an interesting little meat. It works very well in carne asada because it's thin, so it cooks very quickly. It's got a very high marbling. It is grainy, but when you cut it up, after you cook it, it's very tender. So it works really well in tacos. And it's just going right in. Yeah. And then when you get it in there, just kind of, I know it sounds weird, but massage it in a little bit. Now we are stick it in the fridge for about 2 hours and kind of let it turn into delicious taco time. But that's what we're gonna do now. So we've got a couple tomatoes, pretty good sized red onion, and a couple jalapenos. Coated them down in some olive oil and just a little bit of salt. And we are gonna fire them on the grill to make our fire roasted salsa to go with our carne asada tacos. And it's gonna be fire. And it's gonna be fire, right? You see what I did there?
Is that your catchphrase?
I don't know. So when we put our veggies on, we want to make sure that like they're fully coated in olive oil, and we want to get like the char on them. So we want like our tomatoes to be like thoroughly coated with just a little bit of salt on there. And the tomatoes are going to take the longest, so they're going to go on first, and then we're going to kind of take a second. Now the thing is, when you coat them with oil and you put them on the fire, it's going to flame around it. Like you're going to get little spurts of fire. And that's okay. We want that. We want the char. The whole point of a fire roasted salsa is to have that charred flavor in there. Then we're gonna get the jalapenos on there in a couple minutes, and then the red onion. So we're starting to get a little splitting on the tomatoes, which is good, but we're not getting any color yet. A little bit. We want some good color in there. We want a good dark char on them. So I put the tomatoes are on like the grill itself, and the onions I put on the rack above it. And then I took all the olive oil and salt that was left on the plate and I poured it over it. As that olive oil drips down off the onions and drips onto the fire, it's gonna cause like a smoke, which you can kind of see happening. It's gonna instantly catch on fire and flame char the tomatoes, which is what we want. We want them to really kind of blacken on the outside. So we're getting pretty warm in here. We're just gonna flip them real quick, continue to char. Oh yeah. Starting to get some color on there, which is what we wanna see. We're starting to get some color on our pepper. Ooh yeah, mamacita. That's hot as hell. Why is it so hot? I think it's the fire. Anytime you're dealing with like any sort of like fruit or vegetable, they have like this outer layer of like skin on them. And once it starts to heat up on the inside, it'll steam, and then that outer layer starts to split. So if you look at like this guy right here, you see that little crack right there? It's starting to split, and that means that we're cooking on the inside, which is good. That's what we want to do. We want to have it cooked on the inside, but we want that nice char on the outside. So that's why we're cooking real hot. As you cook these things, the flavor profile changes. So like the jalapenos, they stop being like as spicy. You kind of cook that out of them. The tomatoes stop being as sweet. The onions, they change from like a bitterness to more of a sweetness. Everything kind of changes and it mixes it all up. But you still end up with a really cool salsa at the end. We might be nearing doneness here in a second. That's what we want. We want them to start splitting. We want them to start splitting, but we don't want them to blacken. The only thing that you do want to have blacken is the tomatoes. This is what we're looking for. We're looking for color, but not like burnt. Same thing with like the onions. So we're looking for them to sort of start to transluce and apply like a little bit of color, right? So our red onions are not as red. Bye, outer ring. That's what we want. Nice caramelized color. We ready for meat time? Oh, God, it smells good. Mamacita. So that's only gonna cook for probably about 3 minutes aside. It's gonna be pretty quick. So you wanna kind of keep an eye on it. Like flat meat is so thin, it cooks very quickly. We don't want it to overcook, we don't wanna burn it, but we still wanna get that color on there. We wanna get that char. We're getting into flipping territory, okay? We're gonna just take a peek. So we're gonna open the grill, we're gonna sneak a peek. If we've got good grill marks, that means we're getting there. Nope, we're not there yet. Fake news. For a taco, if you try and do like a flour tortilla, you should probably punch yourself in the face. So we're just gonna toss these guys up on the upper rack, let them start getting warm. So we're starting to get some nice color on there, a little bit of light charring. That's what we want to see. Oh yeah. Giving it that one flip, no more, no less. Almost nearing completion on our beef. Right there. We're taking the torch to the lower rack, letting them get a nice little toast to them. We're done. Tasty beef. So now we're gonna finish up the fire roasted salsa. So we've got tomatoes, grilled red onion, and then we're gonna add in some cilantro, so about a half a bunch. Just a rough chop, nothing crazy, because it's gonna go into the blender. And then we're gonna add in some garlic. Just throw them in the hole. I mean, you can do a rough chop on them if you want, but the blender is gonna do most of the work. Okay, so now our jalapenos. We have these nice fire roast jalapenos. The easiest thing to do is just kind of grab them. Obviously not when they're like fresh off the fire because you don't want to die. And sort of pinch the stem right off. And if you want to make it spicy, which we're gonna do, you can do that. And again, it's the white part that's spicy, not the seeds. So don't worry too much about seeds in particular. Now, when you actually go to blend this, like a lot of people, they want to put the lid all the way down on the blender. Whenever you blend anything hot, if you have the lid all the way down, as you blend it, it releases steam and it builds up pressure in there and it will eventually blow the top and you'll get covered in hot, spicy goo, which for some of you seems like a great Saturday night, but for me, I'm not really jonesing on that, you know what I mean? What we're gonna do is we're gonna take this center lid off, we're gonna put a towel over the top, and then we're gonna start off very low and very slow. What that's gonna do is it's gonna keep it from flying out of the top, but it's gonna give the steam somewhere to go. I think we're there. It farted. There's really only like a couple ingredients that should go on a taco. You need your tortilla, you need your meat, cilantro, onions, and then a squeeze of lime. Now, whenever you're processing like citrus, especially for juicing, it's a good idea to roll it beforehand. And the harder you press on it, the more it releases the juice before you even go into it. And then a lot of people will try and slice it like right down the middle. You don't want to do that because it makes it harder to actually juice it. So if you go slightly off center, this is going to release so much more juice because we've cut through all of like those layers. All of that is now exposed and it's super easy to juice. Like it all just comes pouring out of there. So avocados are notorious for the avocado hand that people always get. They come at their avocado, they split it in half, and then people think it's a good idea to swing the heaviest, sharpest knife they have at an avocado seed. It's not smart at all. What I do is I hold it down like this and then tap it with a knife and you can pull it right out. Then you take a big spoon, probably one of the biggest spoons you have, hold it hard against the flesh, pull the avocado right out, and then you can get some nice clean slices out of it. All right, so we're just gonna break down this carne asada. We're gonna cut it one time right down the middle, stack it, and then just do rough chop. We're gonna want about 2-inch by 1/2-inch pieces. And we're just gonna keep cutting it. And that's your basic taco size piece. Like oftentimes if you go to like a burrito joint or something like that, they're gonna be a lot smaller, but they also don't use the same like cuts of meat. They kind of use like whack ass cuts of meat. Now we're kind of putting together our tacos, right? So we take our toasted tortillas. So you always want to cook them with fire, right? Or on a comal, that works as well. And then we just start stacking things, right? So we're gonna take our beef. There's not a lot to the taco. It's beef, it's some white onions, some cilantro, squeeze of lime, a couple of slices of avocado, and then our fire roasted salsa goes right on top. If you have all these things, if you can throw the marinade in, it doesn't take long. It's a really quick process, and you end up with a kick-ass meal. So now I'm gonna destroy these fucking tacos. All right, well, I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for stopping by. I think I'm freaking myself out now about freaking out. Dribble there, huh? How to make some marinade for some carne asada tacos, yeah? Kick off this marinade. And then just start talking with words. Do I need to perspire less? Don't freak out. Yas. Does that make me an LA native if I say yas? This is the action shot right here.
Pausing for the beer.
Oh, I didn't do a very good job on that one. Don't ever refer to me like as cute again. That's odd. You want him to be like, I feel like I don't know what to do with my hands. Sexiness personified. Where do I put my beer? Okay, so marinade.